everyone, I'm Susie and welcome back to Read Susie Read. Since February is probably over by now, I thought it was about time to share with you the books I read way back in January. There's a pretty good chance these are still the only books that I've read so far this year, which is really sad considering over the past 2 weeks I've had a total of 5 snow days off from work. But before I get onto the books, you may have noticed that it's been a while since I've done a book review video here on this channel. While I find them incredibly valuable, not to mention they're some of my favorite videos to watch, they take way more time and energy than I have right now. I've purposely decided to devote more of my creative and mental energy to my job. I love my job and I want the work that I do there to show it. Making videos here is my favorite hobby. It connects me to my brilliant friends. In a perfect world, I could create insightful videos for every book I read, in addition to the booktube norm of lists, hauls, wrap-ups, TBRs, and tags, but that's just not where I am right now, so I hope that you can accept me in all of my booktube clichéness. And without any further ado, here are my hopefully brief thoughts on the non-graphic novel books that I read in January 2015. A Story of Debt by Ashley Reardon. I read this on my Kindle and it is a short ebook adapted from a blog that Ashley kept, chronicling her impressive journey of getting out of credit card debt in under 14 months. I first heard of this book from the recommendation of Kathy, who makes booktube videos over on I Love My Virginia, where she recommended this book very highly. I'm not sure what exactly motivated me to pick this book up at the beginning of January, probably something resolution related, but once I started it, cannot put it down. I never thought that I would stay up into the wee hours of the morning reading about personal finance. What I loved about this book was how Ashley spoke with such inspiring honesty. I don't have anything to say in the didn't like category. I could see how some people may not enjoy the blog entry format, but I found that that made it compulsively readable. I gave it 5 stars. Undoubtedly, there's probably some bias in those stars since I know Ashley via her YouTube channel, but I can sincerely say that this book has had a lasting impact on my life. Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. I had this book checked out from Interlibrary Loan and started it back in November, or late November. This book was quite the buzzy book in 2014 and is a collection of essays that cover a variety of topics including race and pop culture, feminism, and a variety of literary criticisms. This book was a surprise for me. I knew I would probably enjoy it, but it sparked some self-realization and some real change in myself. As I'm sure is true with any collection, there were some essays that really stood out to me and then there were some duds. But past Susie didn't have the foresight to write them down. The thing that I liked about this book is the aforementioned self-evaluation that it sparked, and I think that this book is a perfect introduction to intersectional feminism and is great for any new feminist who is exploring the waters of feminism. What I didn't like about this book was that there felt like there was an excess of the literary criticisms. While some of them fit really well into the narrative that I felt like the rest of the essays created, some of them didn't and maybe weren't right for this collection. As I've already mentioned twice in this video, this book made me realize some things about myself that I would like to expound upon in a completely separate video, so hopefully in the future there will be a what I learned from Bad Feminist video. Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. The reason I picked this book up is in twofold. A friend and former library worker recommended this book to me ages ago, but I was recently inspired to pick up this book after hearing Stephen from Steve Reads Books rave about Edith Wharton's other works. Ethan Frome is this great little story about a man on a failing farm married to an unbearable hypochondriac wife. And I don't want to say much more synopsis-wise because it's such a little book and I don't want to give anything away. What I liked about this book was while the dark, wintry, bleak themes were prevalent throughout this novel, Edith Wharton still somehow managed to create these genuine, warm, cozy moments, no matter how fleeting, and the imagery in this writing was absolutely stunning. And there were some subtle feminist themes that I'm not nearly smart enough to go into. I don't think there's anything that I didn't like about this book. Some may describe this as slow for such a short read, but I think that it really added to the story. And what I took away from this book was that the importance of taking responsibility for your actions, whether they're good or they're bad. If you're miserable, you can only put so much blame on your circumstances, and while it may sound depressing, I think that it's important to accept and deal with the circumstances of your decisions, and once you do that, even if your life doesn't turn out the way that you wanted it to, it can be quite liberating. I listened to 2 audiobooks in the month of January. The first was Stories I Only Tell My Friends by Rob Lowe. This was an upbeat account of aspects of Rob Lowe's life, written and narrated by Rob Lowe himself. I don't know how to rate or talk about audiobooks. I know that it isn't, but it feels like a completely different reading experience than actually physically reading a book. I found myself completely absorbed when I was listening to the stories, and Rob Lowe is a very enthralling storyteller, but ultimately this isn't going to be a book that's going to stick with me for the long term. I don't think that I took anything away from this book other than the reminder that we all need that celebrities are just regular people and don't need to be put up on a pedestal. But other than that, it was just pure entertainment, and if you're interested in Rob Lowe, I highly recommend checking this audiobook out, and I will probably check out his second audiobook in the future. The second audiobook I listened to is Brain on Fire, My Month of Madness by Susanna Callahan. This is a piece of nonfiction about a young journalist who is experiencing a rare brain disease. This book takes us on the journey of the first symptoms, several misdiagnoses, an eventual diagnosis, and treatment. I think that this book really benefited from being written by a journalist. I'm sure that she would have rather not experienced it, but it was a thrilling listen that kept me on the edge of my seat. The narrator of this audiobook was not the author, which I prefer, but she did a superb job, and I recommend this to anyone who is looking for a good piece of nonfiction to listen to on audio. And those are all of the non-graphic novel books that I read in the month of January. As always, please feel free to share your thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned here today in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon with a new video.